Everybody. This is another beautiful episode of the Silicon Valley to Spirituality show. I have a very special guest. He is the CEO and founder of Monko, Terrence White. Terrence, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thanks, Seibo, for having me, man. And I heard so much about you and an honor to be on your show.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I know a lot about you. I know a lot about your business, but my listening audience does not know a lot about Monko. So, Terrence, would you mind just giving us a little bit of your origin story, how you started Monko, and the thesis behind why this particular type of branding for cannabis dispensaries?
Well, it's kind of funny. Monko kind of fell in my lap, and maybe you don't know. I'm a returned citizen. I spent 18 and a half months in federal prison at FCI Morgantown, and while there, I actually bumped into an ex-college teammate of mine, and I played football in college, who was serving seven, 7.5 years for cannabis. And it opened my eyes up because I was inclined. I was a poli-sci and business major in college. But I also knew that, the Supreme Court in '84 said that cannabis was legal for, cataracts and some other things. But here we are having, people are doing, you know, a long time in prison, longer than my sentence was 42 months. And he almost had a double my sentence. And it made me realize what America was actually going to. I'm a real estate guy or serial entrepreneur, um, by all accounts. And I, I moved back to DC in 2015, and DC had passed the I-71 initiatives in 14, which allow cannabis to be gifted in a recreation um, for, and what I said to myself, I started looking at things from a different lens. I didn't jump right into cannabis then. I wanted to actually just kind of get my feet wet and just see the terrain of what the city was going and how it was actually moving in terms of legislation and policy. And when COVID happened, it gave me the opportunity to sit down and write a business plan. I wanted to take the stitch and stigma off of cannabis because for so long, even growing up, I grew up in rural North Carolina, between there and New Jersey. And there was such a stitch and stigma once you said, marijuana, reefer, rabbit tobacco, whatever they wanted to call it in the South. Well, um, I sat down and I said I wanted to make cannabis luxury. I wanted to give it the same feel as you walked into any high-end store, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, or even doing craft beer or a high-end liquor. And so I came up with Monko, and Monko means lover of monkeys. And that still goes back to the root and history of African Americans, who in the Appalachians called cannabis monkey.
Wow.
So I took the name derived at Monko, and here we are, coming up on our 2-year anniversary. And I will tell you that it has been, very challenging. I served as the chairman of the I-71 committee here in DC, to get cannabis from a license to license, but to also make some other policies in place to try to have a healthy and robust cannabis market here. We still have a long ways to go, but that's how I derived and Monko came about.
Mm. What a lovely story. And, you mentioned that it's challenging. And one of the things that I've realized in life is that you can look at every challenge as a problem, or you can look at it as a gift of expansion. And I think you and I both being in the cannabis industry, it's much better if we look at this as a gift of expansion, because if we look at it as a problem, it could feel quite overwhelming. And what I really love about your story is, where the inspiration came from. You saw that people were being locked up for basically using plant medicines and how unfair that was. And I really love the approach of not just normalizing cannabis, but putting cannabis in like this luxury type of framework and environment, because I do believe cannabis to be a very powerful plant. I've seen it heal myself, heal so many people around me. And I've always seen, I mean, I live in California where I would say it's probably one of the most normalized things, but I'm 48 right now. There are other parents about my age that, they're still like hiding in their sheds or in the corner, like they have this idea that people look at cannabis users a certain way. So I really love this luxurious feel and presentation of it. And I also really love the name of the company. And when you said Monko was another way to refer to cannabis, my nickname was the Monkey King in college. And so when I think about, wow, like this Monko is another word for cannabis, the Cannabis King, it just really brings me a lot of joy. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a scene in the Black Panther where they showed one of the tribes, and there was like the monkey tribe, and then the monkey tribe would say praise Hanuman. And
Right.
Hanuman is also a derivative of the Monkey King. So I just felt like a whole lot of connection between the story that you told, um, the inspiration for the name of the company, and us being able to connect today to talk a little bit more about it. So before we hopped on, I had been kind of prefacing like, yeah, this show is about the Silicon Valley, the spirituality show. And one of the things that I have found in my own spiritual awakening is, I know people from the entrepreneurial world, very focused, very um, enthusiastic about making financial progress. Then when I had my spiritual awakening during COVID, I got into the spiritual world and I noticed, wow, there's a lot of people here that, have a lot of really great spiritual advice and knowledge, but they seem to be a little bit detached from like the physical world that we live in. So I always felt that, hey, I'm a human right now in this 3D world. How do we integrate these spiritual ideas and knowledge into a more practical day to day activity so that as we navigate the crazy world of cannabis entrepreneurship, we're not burning ourselves out at the same time. So I'm just curious, to start off this conversation, do you bring in any of your spiritual practices into your entrepreneurship? And if so, could you give us a few examples?
Well, again, I grew up in the South, in a very religious home. I was reared by my mother and grandparents who taught me to go to, it was necessary to go to church and Sunday school every Sunday. So prayer is a big part of my life. Just giving honor and thanking God for each and every day that we're here, whatever that may be, whether it's Allah, whether it's God or Buddha, whomever you may serve. Just giving privilege and thanking Him. And in business, we have to be thankful and mindful for the little things. Um, Being able, as a small business owner, to make payroll, to make sure that all the bills are paid inside or outside of a business. And so thanking God for those things every day is number one, because if those things are taken care of, 9 times out of 10, you're keeping a roof over your head, right?
Right.
Um, which I'm thankful for that as well. But bringing the spiritual and understanding, what the Bible say and understanding how to be fulfilled by that and looking for that wisdom and guidance because sometimes we have to go back to our roots most times, especially in business, because when things get dark, it is those things that shed light to help bring light, and that's you know and one of the things that is profound to me is just understanding God's way, um, and walking in His path. He gave me the opportunity, and regardless of the challenges here in the cannabis space, um, I couldn't have done it without Him because I I started building a store during COVID. Um, and unfortunately, my mother was with me, and she passed away 2 months before I actually opened the store. So um, every time I go to Monko, it's a reflection or her come to my mind because it was, her prayers and her even days I wanted to give up because of supply chain or contractors, all the things that happened during COVID. She reminded me that God hasn't brought you this far to quit. And so, it gave me, and that's, my upbringing from a spiritual standpoint, um, throughout all the challenges, the licenses, situation and, being chairman and, wondering if we're going to get shut down because of the city mandating certain things. I've always kept my faith, which is truly, inspiration of my upbringing because I was taught to trust God and give him all things, trust him first and believe in his word and that, you may have that George will come in the morning, weeping may endure for a night, but George will come in the morning. So those things are definitely profound and stick in my head and my heart.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I also lost my father during COVID, so my condolences. But at the same time, hearing your story, thinking about how you, every day when you get to go into your store, it's a reminder of your mother's lovely spirit and being both believers of God. I totally believe that my father's spirit, your mother's spirit, it's always connected to us. And that has given me so much more faith. And faith is one of the more interesting things that has really helped me. Prior to 2020, I wouldn't say I was like a hardcore atheist, but, I am a rational, logical, quantitative person. And so if someone asked me, like, do I think that there's afterlife? I would say, well, based on my five senses, I no, but I'm open to it. And it's wonderful connecting with God and having this knowing and having this faith that everything will be okay as long as you stay connected, as long as you put in effort, as long as you're treating other people with love and respect. And that's what I heard from your story, just this gratitude and knowing of that you will be taken care of.
Yeah, and there's a quote that I recently heard that's so profound that Martin Luther King. He had a lot of quotes, but this one right here came to mind, and it says, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in a moment of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in the times of challenges and controversy." And a lot of times we can get comfortable, and when everything's going good, um, we forget our faith. We forget what actually got us to that point. And he wrote this while being incarcerated himself. Um, Prison taught me this. And so that's why it stuck to me when I heard this, because, um, we all get comfortable when we're making money and while things are going great. Cannabis is a challenge because from a federal level, we're still waiting for descheduling, rescheduling, whatever is going to happen. But each state, and I'm in a territory like DC, where cultivation is a challenge, licenses is a challenge. Um, and you have to be able to pivot at any moment, anytime. And these challenges don't allow you to get comfortable. Um, and even when things are going good, you know that something's coming and you don't know what. And so the reality is that you never get comfortable, especially in the cannabis business, because of the regulations, the banking. There's a lot of different things that are a challenge to us each and every day. And so it's meaningful to hear you say you thought yourself as basically an atheist, but then your father died and some other things happened. And now you know that there's an afterlife because there's something that those are beliefs that you're starting to believe in, and you starting to trust. We all go through a mindset at some time where we start to doubt not only our abilities, but God abilities.
Mm.
And whether that's in business and whether that's in life, but his deliverance teaches us that even in our doubt, he'll still deliver us. He'll still be a supplier. And whether that's capital, whether that's product, whether that's knowledge, that deliverance,
Mm.
because he promised us that he would be our supplier. It's about our faith that will allow him to be able to supply us.
Mm.
And so the mindset of Monko, or me, behind this brand, because I'm passionate about Monko. I love it with all my heart. But in also business teaches you not to love things because you just never know. You have to be able to separate that love for the honor of business.
Mm.
But cannabis is a plant that has healed so many people, not only from a medical standpoint, but from a recreation, a day-to-day standpoint.
Yeah.
People tend to say, hey, I'm not aching, but from a mental standpoint, it relieves my anxiety, or it allows me to go to sleep at night. Or it could just be because it puts me in a happy space. The two intertwine because that's a medical pill versus a physical, whereas my body might hurt and I might need that topical, or I might need that edible. I might need anything, that capsule that helps me get through this pain. We can, your heritage, we go back to the cannabis before Christ. Some people say that the Boston Tea Party wasn't tea, it was cannabis. We don't know. We wasn't there. But what we do know is today, in today's society, the prevalence of a cannabis has helped veterans. It has helped those with MS, those who are fighting cancer, but it's also helped those who are fighting depression, those who are fighting PTSD. And as a organization or a company that works with veterans who believes in a pill to plant, instead of getting morphine and oxys, let's use this indica or this sativa to help you. Let's wean you off that bottle of pills. Let's help you take you off pills that continue to make you depressed. From a spiritual standpoint, even drinking the tea and other things allows the body to heal from an inward perception. And people use that with meditation and prayer. So the reality of the matter is that this plant is so powerful from a spiritual standpoint, but from a legislation and policy standpoint, people see it as a negative because they don't know the plant. And when you can't speak to something, you only hear about it. You have no lineage with it. There's nothing that associates you or allows you to build chemistry with it. You speak in a negative tone. So therefore, you don't allow the spiritual standpoint to come into the conversation.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And, there was a handful of things that really stuck out to me, especially, in the beginning of your answer where you were talking about, even your faith in God could be shaken up, but God will always come through. And um, I took a break from the cannabis industry from 2020 to 2023. I had been in the industry since 2013. So I felt the pressure of all the challenges. I needed to take a break and I started meditating 90 minutes a day. And I didn't really realize like why I was meditating 90 minutes a day. It just felt right. And what I realized is prayer, meditation, I was kind of using them the same way. It was to connect to something greater than myself. And as I started connecting to something greater than myself, I found myself having to utilize like my own um, decision making as much. Before I would create pros and cons list and just kind of get into analysis paralysis because I could kind of create pros and cons list either way to justify whatever decision I wanted to make. And I started feeling like these intuitive downloads of like, Seibo, hey, focus on meditation, or Seibo, start looking into quantum physics. And as I started following my intuition, I realized, oh, quantum physics, in my experience, was giving me this language to communicate spiritual principles, but in a vocabulary that would be more receptive to people that were like me, more kind of like, hey, I need to see it, smell it, touch it, hear it to believe it. And that was like a really interesting kind of segue or transition in my life. And there were actually portions where of my life where I stopped making a lot of decisions based on just utilizing my analysis and just trusting my intuition. And it was leading me to bigger and better opportunities. And then one day it just stopped, and when it stopped, it made me question, was I actually connecting with God, or was this just, some series of neurons firing in my brain that made me think I was communicating to God? And the interesting thing, Terrence, was that in my faith being challenged and then overcoming that, my faith became even stronger. And so I realized, oh, wow, okay, even faith will get challenged every once in a while because, well, if you want even stronger faith, it needs to be challenged. And then for you to see that it's always been there, even when I felt like it wasn't there.
Mhm.
And so what I wanted to ask you, Terrence, was what was one of the biggest challenges that you faced while launching Monko, and how did you get over that?
Well, the biggest challenges was COVID and all the extensive money, supply chains. Anytime that, you're not meeting the uh, thresholds of opening, then, you're just burning capital and your burn rate becomes tremendous. So, um, having to go out and when there's no institution money, talk to our investors to believe in you to help, hey, I had this amount, I don't have it anymore because I had to spend it on this to get that. And I end up spending $1.8 million in my store during COVID. The first contractor, I, I lost 200 quarter of, well, 300 grand with them. That's nothing to sneeze at. Um, but, but God had, you know, given me the ability to overcome these challenges. And there's days where at nights I did not know how I was going to overcome that. But I had a series of people who believed in me, and believed in Monko, to get the doors open. And it's been challenging because, you know, you continue to fight day in and day out. Um, but the reality of the matter is that these challenges are things that are hard and for preparation and prayer. And I say preparation because when I was in prison, it allowed me to get to know me again from a faith standpoint. Prison was a challenge within itself. Um, but going back to my youth and uh, believing I'm a believer, reading the Bible and meditating and allowing myself to have some time with me and begin to renew myself as God allowed me to be renewed. That was something that prepared me for the challenge while opening Monko. It still prepares me to the challenge today. Mm. It equips me. He's equipped me um, with the things, and that's wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and discernment
Mm.
um, that has helped me overcome some hurdles and obstacles and got me through some trying times. I will tell you, the death of my mother has took a big toll on me because that was not only my mother, that was my best friend. And she was my whisper. Mm. And, you know, when you have somebody who is strong, but also has the wisdom and the intellect and the intelligence to help you get through things earthly, you miss that. And that's something that's not replaceable because not only is she coming from a mother's love, she's also coming from a real love.
Mm.
Um, and that place of trust, when you know that's a shelter and a bond that can't be broken. And regardless, she's going to tell you the truth. Those are things when God placed people in your life like that, it is hard to move forward because then you don't know who to go to. And you have to trust him. You have to give him that the ability to say, hey, I know you took her from me, but I still trust you. Allow me to make the decisions so that I can be successful. So I can still be your child because I will always be your child. Even when I forsake you, you will still love me. And we're not perfect, but we have the ability to call on someone. And if we believe in Jesus, we know he was the most perfect thing that God put on this earth. And that allows us from a spiritual standpoint to trust and to believe and to overcome.
Mm.
And our abilities as life, because life is not promised, tomorrow's not promised to no one. And if today is our last day on this earth, if we say thank you, if we give him thanks, honor, and praise, there will be an afterlife. But we have to understand that. I utilize that. I integrate it every day in my life. I'm trying to be the best father, trying to be the best business owner, trying to be the best husband to be. All the things that I want to see in life. I'm 52. You said you were 48. We have more years behind us in front of us. How can I make these years count that's in front of me? It's the question I ask myself every day.
Mm.
What's my purpose? What's going to be my legacy when someone utilizes me? What would the preacher say? What would a friend say? What will my kids say? What will my wife say? And hopefully I live long enough to say, what will my grandkids say? Those are things, legacies that we're building in place. Those are the challenges that we face, because if we get caught up in what business say and what man say day to day, then we can't allow our spirituality to grow. Because
Right.
if you don't water your spirituality, it's going to die.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that. And, for me, there was a lot of nuggets of wisdom in what you shared, but what I really appreciated, Terrence, is just the level of vulnerability that you're willing to go to share with the people. I know that many entrepreneurs I know behind the scenes, anxious, depressed, stressed out, not happy. The second the camera comes on or someone's interviewing them, oh yeah, we're meeting our quarterly numbers or we got something big planned, and, just really putting on what I like to call like the sales and marketing show.
That's
And
what
to
it
me,
is.
yeah, to me, the conversation that we're having here is real. It's authentic. It's true. We're talking about, yeah, there's a lot of lovely things about the cannabis industry, but there's also a lot of stuff that we have to go through that people in other industries don't have to jump through. And it can feel overwhelming. It can feel like the weight of the shoulders or the weight on my shoulders is just getting heavier and heavier every day. And what I'm really liking about our conversation is not just the vulnerability, but one of the things that I learned, I had a plant medicine retreat 2 weeks ago. And the thing that was shown to me over and over and over again was Seibo. If you need to ask for help, ask for help. And help could be from God. It could be from my friends, or I could ask, hey, Zoe, I'm doing this podcast. I need some really awesome guests. Do you know anyone? And then all of a sudden she sends me this list of really wonderful people. And I saw your name on it. I read about Monko. I know about Pamela. And I was just like, oh, I definitely need to connect with Terrence. And I would say that one of the major reasons why um, I feel so blessed is trusting, trusting that if I put in inspired action every day, if I know what my purpose is and I'm putting in the effort towards my purpose, maybe it's not going to play out exactly the way that I envision it in my head, but I will be rewarded for my actions. And so, you know, I wanted to kind of bring it back a little bit more to the Monko side. And I know we were having a very deep conversation, but, just to kind of bring it back to the business side of things, what does make Monko different from your average dispensary? And what type of experience were you hoping your customers had that they might not have at another dispensary?
Well, first and foremost, I wanted Monko to be the ultimate experience. So, from the aesthetics of the store to the customer service to the products, I wanted us to be able to separate ourselves. And when I first started, my tagline was ignite your curiosity, because making cannabis luxury, you had to ignite people's curiosity. I wanted to take the feel of the neighborhood, which I'm in Mount Vernon Triangle here in Washington, D.C. Luxury apartment buildings, condo units, housings. I wanted to bring that same feel into the store. And I think we accomplished that. Number one, that's the aesthetics of the store. But number two, I wanted to make sure that we greeted every customer. Not only did we greet them, we gave them the education behind the product. And number three is I wanted that education behind the product to lead to the product actually being what we said it was going to be. That separates us from everybody else. You know, I think we've done that in 2 years in business. Um, We got a 4.9 rating on Google, uh, almost 1,500 reviews. Um, and I emphasize every day about how we separate ourselves. So we went from igniting your curiosity to luxury with a purpose. There's something, a t-shirt in the store that says flower to the people. And that t-shirt is because I fight for returned citizens. I fight for social equity and justice. I fight for veterans. I fight for the LGBTQ community, and I fight for communities of color as a whole. And that's luxury with a purpose. Our purpose is to make sure that we continue to build alliances of communities who've been depressed and defamed or defrauded for years. I'm about expanding the tent, my customer base, but I'm also about speaking up when those people have been wronged or ridiculed. Because as a returned citizen, I understand what that feels like. And so I wanted Monko to not only be that luxury store, but I wanted it to have something that was sustainable behind it. And I think we've done a great job at that, the messaging and the marketing. Still got a long ways to go. But I think that we're on the right track.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard that term luxury with a purpose before, and I really love it. Um, and there's something about your energy, Terrence, where when you say it, I could feel it. And what I mean by that is
Mhm.
I've been around so many people that talk about they're for the plant or they're for the people or they're for the patients. And then I just see their activities behind the scenes and it's not congruent, So that's probably one of the things that triggers me the most is when someone is telling me, hey, this is what I represent. And then that's not what they represent. And for me, I'm a very open-minded, easygoing person. If you have different politics than me, that's okay. If you have different ideologies than me, that's okay. But what's not okay is if the story that you're telling me is not the same story that you're telling yourself, then that's when I find misalignment. And so with you, I'm big into energy. Like when you're saying these things, Terrence, I could feel it. I could feel it. I could see that you are true to it, that you're grounded in it. And I just wanted to reflect that back to you because I'm not a CEO anymore, but I know that when I was a CEO of my company, it was a little bit lonely. I felt like it was like being the dad, not just of my household, but the dad of the company where the buck stops at me. And I know that when I did the plant medicine ceremonies and it gave me permission to ask for help, it was like so relieving. Like, oh, wait, I could always go to Source Energy or I could go to Dodd. Or I feel like, yeah, if I had a problem, I could probably call Terrence now and Terrence would pick up the phone and give me the time, to listen to me and to reflect something back to me that would be beneficial. So I just really wanted to acknowledge um, you know, for the people listening, this is the first time I've met Terrence. We had like about a 2-minute conversation before we started recording. So I didn't know a lot about Terrence, but I felt like in just 40 minutes of speaking with you, yeah, sure, there will be a lot of other details of your life that I will learn about later, but your essence of your humanity, your spirit and your soul, I feel like I've connected with that. I know what type of person you are. And if you haven't heard it from other people, I just want to let you know I could sense you're a wonderful human being, a wonderful entrepreneur. I think you said a husband to be and also a father. And those are things that are most important to me when I think about, who do I want in my life? And it's definitely people like Terrence White.
And, I appreciate that. I recently, I have a 27-year-old son, and Right now, he and I are estranged, and I don't tell many people about that. And the reason we're estranged because he, um, and I love my son to death. He's my youngest. But when man can't apologize or man can't humble himself to acknowledge when he's wrong, I have a problem with that, because I was taught at a young age is that the biggest thing that God gave man was to be able to be humble, to accept something. And when you can accept something, whether you're right, wrong, or indifferent, that's when God blesses you the most. And the reality of the matter is that life will be our biggest teacher. The day that we stop being more entitled than God is the day that we allow that he will strike our humbleness from us, because we allow him to take it from us. And you talked about entrepreneurship. It is one of the hardest things that most people ever do. Because when you have to be daddy, as you call it, you got to be the disciplinary, you got to pay the bills. You have to, when there's a robbery, you have to fix it. Everything that encompass entrepreneurship, it takes a very strong person mentally, because those challenges are things that you have to be able, preparation, trust. You have to learn how to trust others, because you pay them to do something. And when that's not done, it don't fall back on nobody else but you. And you have to be able to cope with other people's making mistakes with your money or your time. Those are challenges that a lot of people can't stomach. And God has afforded me this ability to be an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. Um, and it can be lonely, but what I've learned is that if you want to go to the top of the mountain and you don't allow others to go to the top with you, you will be lonely.
Mm.
You have to trust people, the ones you love, to walk with you in your journey. It's not easy. You can say it easy, but it's not easy. And so, those have been the realities of just this. And I know we talked about the more spiritual side than the entrepreneurship side. And we talked, it's my first time speaking with you. I read up on you, and I appreciate your spirituality. I appreciate your show, and I appreciate you allowing people to tell their story and speak their message. Monko, uh, our goal is to continue to serve not only uh, the citizens of Washington, D.C. or the DMV, but, D.C. has about 24 to 25 million people visited every year. My goal is to make us um, the flagship of DC. And at some point, maybe I will become a multi-state operator. It's all in God's hands, as I say. But right now, I want us to be able to continue to push this luxury with a purpose, allow cannabis to speak for itself. Just like the alcohol industry, the gambling or gaming industry. And that, at some point, those challenges that we get banking, that policy and politics won't stop us from doing the things that we want to do in this space.
Yeah. Yeah. Luxury with the purpose is, I don't know why it just resonates with me so much, because I think of things that are like purpose driven. I think of people going to third world countries, setting up like water or building homes. Then when I think of luxury, I think of like such lavish things. And so I love like the combination of like luxury with a purpose, because I do believe like, at least for me, one of the most effective ways for me to grow spiritually was to be able to hold paradoxes within my spirit more easily. Like I completely surrender to God, but at the same time, I'm still going to take inspired action to manifest the things that I want. Or I am 100% grateful for the life that I have, but I'm still inspired to work to create an even more abundant life for my family. And so when I hear luxury with a purpose, it does really make me feel like, oh, wow, this is like a combination of two things that I don't usually see together, but I could totally see it becoming something. Um, I was going to say purpose driven, but the word purpose is already in there, but I just really love that. And what I wanted to ask you, Terrence, is what are you most excited about today? What brings you the most amount of like inspiration, motivation, um, towards your personal life or your business, either one? I was curious what you're most excited about.
Well, recently I got engaged in July, and after 50 years on earth being single, um, I found someone that was a true partner and believed in me, and so I'm excited, about our journey on a personal level. But on a professional level, I'm excited about growing Monko and uh, you know, in Pleasant Hill Wellness, which is cultivation and manufacturing, being vertical. And as you know, less than 3% of the cannabis industry are made up of minorities. Um, and less than that are made up of people, Black males. Um, and so the ability to go vertical, to be vertically integrated, to have retail and manufacturing and cultivation, that's a big deal. So I'm working on that now, um, to be vertically integrated. Um, there's not a lot of people of color that can say that, are not only in DC or the DMV, but across the country. Um, and as I continue to work towards that, that's, you know, my biggest thing. And I'm excited, about cannabis as a whole. I think that, um, as we go through this election period, I think that possibly candidates that can be uh, pro cannabis, that will allow the industry to flourish. And that excites me because, um, we talk about the challenges. Now I'm starting to, let's talk about the rewards.
Mm,
And I think, you know, in the next 4 to 6 years, if we can have, um, pro, pro cannabis administrations, we can start reaping the rewards of cannabis. And I'm excited about that.
that's so awesome. You know, you said a lot of things, and there's only one thing that I disagree with. And you said earlier, when I will be successful. And to me, you're already successful. You're in the middle of it. You're building, you're getting into vertical integration. And, you know, I'm only repeating this back to you because I remember that every single milestone that we hit, I was expecting, all right, I'll be successful when we get to 6 figures, when we get to 7 figures, when we get to 8 figures. And I just kept on like every time we got to a certain point, I just pushed back the goal lines to something else. And so I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I already see you as successful. I know God already sees you as successful. I know your mother already sees you as successful. We're both in positions where, like my first cannabis convention, I think was in 2014 or 15. So coming on 10 years, I was
Mhm.
definitely the only Asian guy in the room. And, when I went to MJ BizCon last year, they had
Mhm.
like an Asian happy hour. I was like, wow, like we actually have our own happy hour right now. Like how
Right.
freaking cool is that? And, yeah, it's just been really awesome in this journey. And, one of the things that I thought was just important to reflect back to you was that you're already doing it. You're in the process of building it. And my background had been I've almost exclusively worked in startups, tech startups. I worked for 6 tech startups that had successful exits. So I feel like I have this really unique view of watching people grow their companies. And one of the things that I recognized was that the funnest times was actually like the building. Like, okay, what could we be? What could the brand evolve into? And that was the most exciting time. And then once we got into like, all right, this is what the software does. This is the vertical that we're going after. It was like more like optimization. And in my mind, like the optimization was a little bit less fun than just like kind of like that creative period of like, we could be anything, but what do we want to be? So I just wanted to be that voice of like just really enjoying the journey and not just the destination. And what I wanted to ask you actually was, do you have a favorite Monko product? I'm curious what your favorite product
Well,
is.
the strange thing is I haven't smoked since I was 23. I haven't done I don't smoke. I drink socially, um, but if I had to say was a favorite product, because I do buy all the products in the store, um, we have a I am very I use topicals, some are CBD products, right? Because I'm an old football player who body still hurts. Um, but if I had to have a favorite, I would probably say we have a, a disposable called Turn, and it's a 2 gram pen, vape pen, that everyone goes crazy about. Um, and I was for a long time, I was the only person on the East Coast that had product. We're coming out now. Um, I just signed an agreement to be the exclusive carrier for a company called Bliss, which it will be edible, a 10 gram, 100 milligram pack product that will be, the product is up there with Wows and Camino in terms of vegan, um, just the presentation, everything. I will be the only carrier on the East Coast for the first 90 days. Um, so, uh, those things mean a lot to me, those products. Unfortunately, I stopped doing cannabis because I became a fat boy. It puts a lot of weight on me. And so, but I do recognize the, the importance of the plant. And I still, one of the things I do is I connect with people who use the plant the way it should be. And that gives me a lot of inner peace. Uh, And if I really told you my story growing up, you would probably laugh, but you would also, your mouth would probably drop as well. So that's for another time. Um, but yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, I am a huge fan of the topicals. I did a lot of jujitsu, so not quite as rough and tumble as football, but you are you are letting someone else manipulate your body in positions that they're not supposed to go into. And those salves have been so wonderful. And I love that you brought up Camino gummies. Camino or Kiva Caminos are something in California, but I 100% agree with you from a presentation, from a consistency, from a chew factor point of view. They are the best. So if Bliss is in the same tier as Camino, the people in DC are going to be in for a treat because I I don't know if you know, but I design vaporizers, but I've been my all of my cannabis consumption career has been with the vaporizer since 1997. But more recently, I've just I've just I know the best thing for your lungs is just fresh air. So I've
Mm.
just been eating edibles and I've bought so many different brands of gummies and they all have a good effect. But to me, it's not just about the effect, it's about the whole presentation, the taste, everything.
Yeah.
And the Caminos, I would say, are the only ones that I would eat, even if they had no effect. So I'm super excited for people in DC to experience something like Bliss and you definitely have a winner
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So, Caminos and Wows have been, you know, um, you know, v- very popular out here, on the East Coast. I mean, I know they're the same out on the West Coast. And you talked about vapes, the same company, and we're, we're doing a disposable, um, that'll be exclusive called Blossom, which the rig is different, but gives you, that hit, that everything that you need in a rig. Um, and the product is, spot on. And so I'm happy to be, part of, exclusivity, with this company, but from the packaging to the feel to the taste to everything, and being part of the way that we market it and the way that we've done case studies and allow people to actually taste it to make sure that we get the right message back in terms of how to present it, how it should taste, the feel, the whole 9 yards. And so those things, as I get into um, the manufacturing space and myself, that's what I'm about, making sure that people have a luxury product that's affordable, um, but also that checks all the boxes.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited as you guys built in the vertical integration. And we only have a couple of minutes here, but what I always leave the last few minutes of is what is most important for Terrence White to communicate to my audience today? And it could be anything professional, personal, spiritual, or just, hey, there's the Olympics happened. I didn't like the breakdancing. So the floor is open to you there, Terrence.
Well, I just hope that, what I wanted to communicate, and I hope your audience got to get to know Terrence, from a personal standpoint and not an entrepreneur standpoint. And I hope that, going forward, if you guys, want to reach out to me while you're in DC, or you just want to reach out to me, my hashtag is Monko DC. Um, if you want to email me, I'm twhite@monko.co. That's twhite at monko.co. And, you know, I'm just a country boy trying to make a living. And that's what my motto will always be.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Me and you had the reverse. I used to live in San Francisco. Now I live in the countryside. I got my chickens, my ducks, my
Mhm.
neighbors' goats come by, and I'm enjoying this different life. So I love that you're the country boy making it out in the big city. And I really appreciate how much you shared with us today. Like as you said, people got to know you more as a person and not just as an entrepreneur. They got the multidimensional aspect of Terrence. And I'll make sure that your email, all of Monko's socials are there. If you guys are in the DC area, please check out Monko. That's spelled Monko. And if I'm ever out there, Terrence, for sure, I will hit you up. I would love to break some bread with you, Barry, and Pamela. And check out the store in real life because I've seen the pictures, I've watched videos. It is really amazing. The fact that you guys have a 4.9 rating on Google with over, I think you said over several hundred reviews. I mean,
Yeah.
that is just
15
unheard of.
million.
That's unheard of.
Yeah. So, yeah, we thank you, man. Thanks for the opportunity, to share and to be part of your vision and your message. And, I pray that you continue to do great works in this space. And if you're ever, if I'm ever out that way and think you're in NorCal right now.
Yep, I'm in NorCal. Yep.
Yeah. If I'm ever back out that way, I spend a lot of time out there, getting to know the plant. And, if I'm ever back out that way, I'll definitely reach out so we can break bread, but don't hesitate if you ever need a partner, brother.
I
Thank you
will
for
not
the,
hesitate.
yep.
All right. Thank you so much, Terrence. Thank you for such a wonderful show. And we will be back next week with another episode of the Silicon Valley 2 Spirituality Show. Thanks for listening, everyone.